Number 10. Oliver Queen. During the Elseworlds story in CW's Arrowverse, we learned that Oliver Queen and the Flash have swapped bodies, or rather roles. Everyone seems to think that Oliver is Barry and that Barry is Oliver. Initially, although both heroes struggle to fit into the other's role, eventually the two are able to figure out what makes the other such a great hero and channel some of their energy. Oliver himself struggles as the Flash, but even when he's running into walls and misfiring Speed Force lightning, he still manages at least to catch the bad guy, which is pretty impressive. Even when he's doing a bad job, it's not that bad. And after Barry takes him under his wing, he actually becomes a pretty decent Flash by the end of this storyline. Considering how many people love Oliver Queen when it comes to the Arrowverse, with him being sort of the ultimate main character, because, you know, it's the Arrowverse, it wouldn't surprise me if people preferred that Queen remain the Flash, as then he'd get cool super speed powers permanently. Number 9. The Accelerated Man. From CW's Arrowverse in The Flash, we hear of an alternate version of the character from Earth 19. We don't have too much information on this alternate version of the Flash, but it has been suggested that they are a speedster who instead goes by the name the Accelerated Man. Earth 19's H.R. Wells, the alternate version of Star Labs director, founder, and lead scientist Harrison Wells, claims that he played a key role in helping the Accelerated Man to capture all of the metahuman criminals from their world at once, which honestly sounds pretty impressive. The Accelerated Man is also a speedster from the comics who hails from Earth 19, although that version of the character is a little bit different, though they do look pretty similar to the CW version. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, really quick, before we get there, make sure you click that like button. It does help us out and it lets us know that you want more good Flash content like this. Number 8. Iris West II. Iris currently goes by the name Impulse in the comics. She is the daughter of Wally West and Linda Park, who initially was lost when the New 52 started up. However, her dad remembered her existence and the family he had once had from the previous continuity, and he would end up seeking out Iris and her twin brother Jay. In the previous continuity, it was suggested that Iris could even grow up to become faster than her dad, Wally West, who is known for being one of the fastest speedsters of all time. So that's pretty impressive. However, in the current continuity, I don't think this has been established as something that could happen in Iris's future. However, we do know in Iris's future that she could go on to live to do her father, the Flash, proud, and while not an explicit version of the Flash, we have seen into a future in issue 771 of the Flash, where she goes on to become the new Kid Flash. And because I love Iris so much, I'm gonna count it because I just love her as a character. Number 7. Eobard Thawne. I know what you're thinking, hey, but isn't Eobard Thawne known as a villain and the Reverse Flash? In the main continuity, yes, but in the Dark Multiverse Flashpoint story, Eobard actually becomes the Flash, and what's more, he kinda becomes a hero as well. A dark, twisted, and messed up hero, hell-bent on eradicating competing heroes of that universe, but a hero nonetheless. He succeeds in defeating Barry Allen and Flashpoint Batman, aka Thomas Wayne, and then sets out to change the world, shaping it into his version of perfect. This involves preventing Batman from ever becoming Batman and instead creating his own superhero team. Number 6. Impulse. Okay, so Impulse isn't really the Flash. He's more associated with the Kid Flash name than the main Flash name, though he did at one point dress up as the Flash in order to buy time for Wally. Unfortunately, his very brief time impersonating the Flash wearing the costume was cut very short, as at this time Bart was without his powers and ended up being killed. Of course, this was still a very moving story involving Bart, who is probably the most loved member of the Flash family, with really only Iris and Jay West offering any potential competition there, in my opinion. Those two are a couple of super lovable cuties as Wally and Linda's kids. Also, despite being young, Bart Allen is still super powerful when he is powered. He can time travel, hop dimensions, has been shown to be fast enough to fend off and even beat Godspeed, and he can phase. Number 5. Jess Chambers. Jess Chambers is the Flash from Earth 11, who in Future State ended up moving to Earth 0, heading there to help at first but deciding to stay on Earth 0 permanently. They ended up joining the Future Justice League, and while working alongside their teammates, we saw Jess do something pretty cool. Something I'm not sure I've ever seen another Flash do before, but if you have, I guess let me know in the comments. The Justice League seem to be trapped in another world by the White Martians, who have taken their place and aim to conquer Earth 0. Flash uses their Speed Force senses to determine, based on the vibration of the Earth that they are on, that it's not actually the Justice League's homeworld, it's not Earth 0. In order to take the League home, Jess then shares their power with their teammates, also granting them a connection to the Speed Force and super speed temporarily, allowing them to travel through the multiverse together and all return home. Also, for those wondering, Earth Zero is the number for future states, reality, and Earth. Number 4. Jay Garrick. Jay Garrick was the first Flash. He actually gained his superpowers from his own experiments. He might not have been the fastest Flash initially, considering that he could travel near the speed of light, which in retrospect now isn't actually that fast compared to some other Flashes, but back in the day that was considered to be pretty impressive. Before we got as crazy as being able to duplicate yourself with the Speed Force and travel back and forth through time, Jay was also known for being a brilliant scientist. He has even been called on in the past in the original comic series to use his scientific skills to help save the world. And when it comes to making all the right calls, Jay is definitely one of the wisest Flashes that we have in the comics, as he has the most experience. Jay is also one of the best Flashes because, well, he doesn't really overstay his welcome. He ended up retiring as the Flash, but would still make appearances here and there when he was needed, which honestly I think is the best you can do, because as a Flash you kinda can go back into the Speed Force and pop back out again, but you don't need to stay forever. Unlike some Flashes. Looking at you, Barry. Number 3. Red Racer. While his existence in the comics was a bit short-lived, Red Racer is definitely one of the coolest Flashes that we've ever got to meet. He was not just a science nerd like so many of the Flashes are, but was also a comic book nerd. The best kind? I think so. He made sure to get President Superman of Earth 23 to sign his Superman comic upon meeting him. Red Racer is the fastest man alive on Earth 36 and part of that world's Justice 9 team. He ended up joining a multiversal sort of Justice League that included Earth 23's Superman, Earth 11's Aquawoman, and Captain Carrot of Earth 26. This team is known as Justice Incarnate in the comics. Red Racer also did not hesitate when he had to give up his life in order to save others, and he also proved how intelligent he was at that time when he rapidly built a receiver version of Ultima Thule, a sort of interdimensional spaceship that is made out of frozen music. Doing so cost him his life, but enabled the rest of his teammates to save the day. Oh, and he also did it really fast, and it's supposed to be a thing that takes thousands of years. And I'm pretty sure he also did it without any blueprint. He just was like, yeah, I'll just build it. I'll die, but I got you guys. So cool, what a hero. Number 2, Red Death. Because Batman basically does everything better, including being the Flash. Or well, this is the Dark Multiverse and the Dark Knights, so I guess I should say he does it the worst in terms of him being a bad guy, but he also does it the best in terms of what he is capable of. Bruce Wayne as the Dark Multiverse Flash, the Red Death, can actually use his Speed Force powers to create constructs. If you are struck with one of these bat-like constructs, you'll end up withering to the point of death, aging thousands of years almost instantly. So this is probably the most deadly version of the Flash that we've ever seen in the comics. Red Death hails from Negative Earth 52, back when there were negative Earths and we had a dark multiverse. R.I.P. Dark Multiverse. Number 1, Wally West. Obviously, who is one of the best Flashes around? None other than Wally West, the once new version of the Flash everyone fell in love with and then were deprived of for years. However, Wally is back now, and not in a way where he's forced to be a villain or to be miserable. He actually gets to be a hero and be happy in the comics, which is really all most Wally fans have wanted for him and his family this whole time. Wally West is the nephew of Iris West and therefore by marriage Barry Allen. For a time, Wally operated as Barry's sidekick, Kid Flash, but would eventually become a hero all his own. Wally is considered to be one of the fastest Flashes to have ever existed, and he also seems to have learned somewhat from Barry's and the other Flash's mistakes in the past, making him sometimes a little bit wiser by comparison. At least a bit wiser than Barry.
Starting us off in at number 10, Black Flash. The actual physical representation of death for all speedsters, Black Flash is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. Making his first appearance in The Flash Volume 2 number 138 back in 1998, he was seen before the deaths of several speedsters including Barry Allen, Johnny Quick, and Bart Allen. But he also tried to return Wally West to the Speed Force, but was unsuccessful, taking Linda Park instead, Wally's girlfriend. Black Flash eventually did return to try to claim Wally again, freezing time for everyone without a connection to the Speed Force to do so, but thanks to the combined efforts of multiple speedsters, Wally was able to race Black Flash until the end of time, causing death to have no meaning. The CW Black Flash, which was really just Hunter Zolomon aka Zoom, was killed during season 3 when Savitar lured him out of the Speed Force and then Killer Frost froze him, resulting in her first kill that actually turned out to be her ex as well. Dare I say, ice cold. old. But that didn't stop the Speed Force anyway, since later on Barry Allen returned in the Flash Rebirth storyline in the comics, becoming the new Black Flash. So this is also a version of the original Flash as well as a separate entity. In at 9, Inertia. The bitter feud between the Allen family and the Thawne family would span generations. Even in the 30th century, President Thawne sought to recruit Bart Allen in his revenge campaign against the Allens, since Bart was half Thawne himself. When that failed, Thawne mixed Bart's DNA with Thawne's genetic material to create a speedster clone who he named Thaddeus Thawne. Whereas Bart grew in a hyper-accelerated world, Thaddeus' childhood was the exact opposite, because of course it was, he's the reverse. His development was super slow, which led the young speedster to become more calculated and methodical. Thaddeus was also taught to hate the Allen family, and Impulse in particular. In addition to this modification, Thaddeus' growth and development was slowed. This is in contrast to Bart's accelerated development. However, after killing Bart, Wally West had other plans. Upon hearing of Bart's death, an enraged Flash hunted Inertia down. Though he thought of killing him, Flash decided instead to do something worse. He used his abilities to slow Inertia's movements down to the point where he was totally immobile, essentially a living statue, and then he placed Inertia on display at the Flash Museum, facing statues of Bart Allen as Impulse and Kid Flash. He could still think, see, and hear in normal time, but was frozen in place. Inertia was then just doomed to spend an eternity in a state of near total paralysis, staring at images of the guy he killed. In at 8, Godspeed. August Hart is the former detective partner of Barry Allen. August was the only witness to Barry's accident that turned him into the Flash, and while going after a criminal organization called the Black Hole, August was struck by lightning during a Speed Force storm in Central City. August became the ruthless vigilante known as Godspeed, and got his revenge on the man who he suspected to have killed his brother. He had given up on the justice system since his brother's killer had gone free, and with his newfound power, had the ability to become judge, jury, and executioner. August realized after he had gotten his powers that he also had the ability to steal others' speed, though for a time he could only do it by killing them. He practiced this skill to be able to do it non-lethally as well though. With his new godlike speed, August was able to move so fast as to create duplicates of himself at any given time, allowing him to give the illusion that he and Godspeed were different people, which is pretty damn sick, considering the alternatives are Speed Mirage and Time Remnant, which aren't exactly the same thing but are still fairly similar. And in 7, Earth X. There's little known about the Earth X version of Barry Allen. Known as Blitzkrieg in this reality, he's a fascist version of the Flash working alongside Dark Arrow and Overgirl, the Oliver Queen and Kara Zor-El of Earth X, who are also married, but that's a story for another day. In the Arrow vs. Crisis on Earth X crossover, Earth X Barry is actually nowhere to be seen. Instead, he's replaced by Reverse Flash, the Eobard Thawne of Earth 1. Even though on the animated show The Ray, which takes place on Earth X, there is a fascist Barry, so what happened? It's largely assumed that between his last appearance in the show and in the crossover, that Thawne arrived and took his chance to kill at least a version of Barry, even if it wasn't his own. Hence why the other Earth Xers were so trusting of Thawne, since he had bested their Barry. I don't know how this Barry got his powers without the particle accelerator, but what I do know is that even the Joker refused to work with the Red Skull when he realized that he was actually a fascist and not some kook in a wildly inappropriate costume, saying that he may be a psychopath, but he's an American psychopath, or something along those lines. So, Reverse Flash is worse than Joker confirmed. Like, this wasn't even a Reverse Flash who was raised in the fascist life. He just wanted to help out, which is messed up as hell. And at 6, Zoom. Hunter Zolomon was a serial killer from Earth 2, also known as the maniacal super speedster known as Zoom. Having gotten tired of being the villain, Hunter decided to also become the hero after capturing Jay Garrick, the Flash from Earth 3, masquerading as Jay to gain Barry Allen's trust. When he was 11, Hunter saw his father kill his mother. Hunter's father ended up in jail, and Hunter was raised in the foster care system since no relative wanted him. Hunter later became a convicted serial killer and was going through electroshock therapy when Earth 2 Harrison Wells' particle accelerator exploded underground. This ended up connecting him to the Speed Force and he escaped. Zolomon killed some police officers on his way out and left one to tell his story. The one police officer said he saw a man zooming around, giving Zolomon the alias of Zoom. Zoom later then killed that police officer in his house. Halfway through in at number 5, The Rival. Edward Claris is the Rival, the archenemy of Golden Age Flash Jay Garrick. Claris was a chemistry professor at the university attended by Jay Garrick. He believed that he had recreated the formula that gave Garrick his speed. Bitter at the rejection of his research claims by the scientific community though, Claris became a criminal wearing a darker version of the Flash's outfit, the original Reverse Flash. The effects of this version of the formula, however, proved to be temporary, and he was defeated when it expended. Decades later though, following the reformation of the Justice Society of America, Claris was retrieved from the Speed Force, because he had been put in there at some point, by the interdimensional supercriminal Johnny Sorrow, who invited him to join the new Injustice Society. Now composed of pure speed energy, Claris possessed Garrick's friend and fellow Golden Age speedster Max Mercury to get the Flash's attention. Rival committed a series of swift, gruesome murders at locations that, when mapped out, would spell out a message. We don't talk about the Arrowverse version, though. Like, I know his suit was meant to be similar to Daniel West's Reverse Flash, but come on. And for Johnny Quick. Johnny Allen, alias Johnny Quick, is a criminal speedster from Earth 3. Together with his girlfriend and partner in crime Atomica, he was a member of the crime syndicate. Johnny Allen was a high-profile criminal on the run with his equally criminal girlfriend, cornered on the roof of Central City's Star Labs. Allen was struck by a bolt of lightning which shattered the roof, and the duo fell into the lab space below, with Allen landing amid some chemicals. Obviously, this is the thing that ended up granting him his super speed, and he went on to become a super criminal alongside his girlfriend, who had also been empowered. He took on the name of Johnny Quick, while his girlfriend took on the name of Atomica. The couple joined the crime syndicate at some point after this. Johnny Quick, as he now called himself, ran through Central City answering to no one, until the day the White House burned, around the time of Darkseid's incursion onto Earth Prime. The being that had destroyed Ultraman's Krypton came to Earth, and an alliance of super criminals formed to find a way to safety. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster that is an evil combination of Batman and the Flash, which already sounds terrifying, but wait till you hear his story. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but Robins kept dying left, right, and center. So understandably, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his, let's call them methods. Which honestly seems more realistic to me, aside from just quitting fighting crime. Which can't happen, otherwise we wouldn't have this story, right? And DC wouldn't make any money. This eventually leads him to Barry Allen, who refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers. So Batman, using the various rogues' weapons to fight off Barry, knocked him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic treadmill-powered Batmobile and drove them both into the Speed Force. I don't even know how that happened or worked logically, but okay, you do you, Bat Marty. When entering the Speed Force though, Barry and Bruce ended up fusing together into an evil Batman with super speed and a lust for killing, while Barry's mind was trapped in Bruce's body. He then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, who asks him to join the Dark Knights, whose goal is conquering the multiverse. Penultimately, in at number 2, Savitar. As a fan of the Arrowverse, I felt like I needed to include one of the most interesting speedsters in the show. Savitar, while sharing a name with another evil speedster from the comics, is actually revealed to be a time remnant of Barry Allen in the show, being more of a future Flash than a Savitar. Honestly, he's like a combination of both. His story, though, is pretty messed up. In essence, making himself and having a classic chicken and the egg scenario. In the post-Flashpoint Arrowverse timeline, Savitar comes back from the future to kill Iris West before her and Barry get married. This causes Barry to create as many time remnants as possible, which is basically a clone of himself, in order to stop him. But Savitar kills all of them except one. The one that he spares then gets shunned by the rest of Team Flash for not being the real Barry Allen, even though he is still the real Barry. It's weird. So in an act of fury, the Time Remnant runs back in time, creating a new identity for himself as the first speedster and the god of speed known as Savitar. But the suit he wears allows him to travel at basically instantaneous speeds, which the show Flash has not been able to do at this point, even in recent seasons. And finally, and at number 1, Reverse Flash. I know what you're thinking, okay? Isn't Eobard just the Reverse Flash? Like, not actually a version of the Flash? In the main continuity, yes, but also thinking of the Flash Armageddon crossover, Barry Allen becomes the Reverse Flash, so this could be another literal evil version of the Flash. But in the Dark Multiverse Flashpoint story, Eobard also becomes the Flash, and he kind of becomes his own form of hero in a way. A dark, twisted, messed up hero, hell-bent on eradicating competing heroes in the universe, but still a form of hero, right? Technically it counts. And I mean, like, he's still scary, alright? And a version of the Flash, so this counts for this list. In a universe where Barry Allen dies while trying to get his powers back with Flashpoint Batman, aka Thomas Wayne. But once Thawne tried to stop the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman by threatening them and killing Arthur, you know there's gonna be some hell to pay. So he sets on shaping the world in his own image. This involves preventing Batman from ever becoming Batman and instead creating his own superhero team, full of versions of characters we know and love, but all with Reverse Flash logos somewhere on their suits, usually. usually. And I have to say, preventing Batman from being created is probably the smartest thing Eobard could have done, because either way, Batman is going to lead some form of resistance against you, so good on you. This is the smartest thing that any villain has ever done in the DC universe. And at 10, Future Flash. The Future Flash is certainly a powerful version of Barry, but he's not really from another reality, but from an alternate future that he wants to prevent from happening, hence why he's at number 10. The Future Flash is a version of Barry Allen from the future who blamed himself for the death of Wally West. So in an effort to correct that mistake, he tries to prevent this tragedy by killing people. Yeah, he starts killing his enemies to gain enough speed to travel back in time. He starts by killing Gorilla Grodd with like a little microbomb that he phases into his head, and then eventually he kills enough people that he can travel back in time to kill one final person, himself. His goal this whole time was to travel back to before Wally dies and kill his old self, preventing any of this from happening. At least that's what he thinks is gonna happen, which is honestly a pretty awful plan if you ask me. But based on how he killed his entire rogues gallery, essentially in order to gain enough speed to travel back in time, makes him seem pretty damn powerful, and honestly, really scary. Like, if you're willing to kill another version of your past self, or whatever it is, okay, you need some therapy or something. I mean, it still sounds like a paradox to me, like I don't think you could actually kill yourself, but hey. And at 9, Kingdom Come. Wally West from Earth 22 is really powerful, but it comes with a major downfall. In the Kingdom Come universe of Earth 22, Wally West received his speed through unknown means, but nonetheless he still became the Flash, obviously. When Superman retired though, Wally kept going, but he kept going and never stopped, running from scene to scene, disaster to disaster, never taking a break. This ended up somehow just making it so that he could never stop running, having to constantly run as fast as he could, resulting in appearing to everyone as just a red blur, classic Flash style. But while this is powerful, he literally cannot stop, so there isn't really much benefit to it. However, he didn't end up killing himself or traveling back in time to kill himself, so you know what, in my books he's more powerful than Future Flash, even if he can't stop running. I mean, like, at least the cops or death can't really catch him that way, right? Like, do you think like as he gets older, like he slows down, like to a point where he shouldn't be able to stand, but he's still running as fast as like your typical 23-year-old jogger, but like he can never stop? And it ain't Mercury Flash. Mercury Flash is a robotic version of the Flash made by Dr. Tornado as a member of his Metal League. The robot uses a mercury-based physiology, whatever that means, that makes it able to somehow channel the Speed Force. I don't understand how this man not only learned about the Speed Force, but was able to replicate or siphon it using mercury or whatever, but who cares? It's comics. It doesn't need to make sense as long as it advances the plot. First being introduced in the Multiversity Guidebook #1 in March 2015, this version of the Flash can do everything the normal Flash can do powers-wise. Because, you know, he's a robot, he can't really do, human-like activities. And has the added advantage of, you know, being a robot, so he doesn't really fear death. Not only is it not coded into him, but he also is just straight up being able, you can repair him. This version of the Flash hails from Earth 44, and honestly I kinda wish I was him. No responsibilities, only running super fast. That's the dream. And at 7, Black Flash. The actual physical representation of death for all speedsters, and honestly maybe a couple other people, but they just don't see him coming. Black Flash is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. Making his first appearance in The Flash Volume 2 number 138 in 1998, he was seen before the deaths of several speedsters, including Barry Allen, Johnny Quick, and Bart Allen. He also tried to return Wally West to the Speed Force, but was unsuccessful, taking Wally's girlfriend Linda Park instead. I mean, like, based on past experiences, Wally, feel like he did you a favor. But since he was unsuccessful the first time, Black Flash returned to try to take Wally again, freezing time for everyone who didn't have a connection to the Speed Force, which is a total dick move. Like, first you take my girl, and now you're still trying to get me? Like, bro, at least give me my girl back. But thanks to the combined efforts of multiple speedsters, including Jay Garrick, Max Mercury, and Jesse Quick, Wally was actually able to race Black Flash to the end of time, causing death to apparently have no meaning, which I mean doesn't really make total sense, because as long as someone is still living, death would still matter, but oh well. It's comics, like I said. But that didn't stop the Speed Force, because later Barry Allen returned in the Flash Rebirth storyline, becoming the new Black Flash, until Professor Zoom took over the title after, you know, he was raised in the Blackest Night storyline. Yeah, there's been a lot of Black Flashes. And at 6, Darkseid War. What's more powerful than a speedster death? What about actual death as a speedster? That's right, in the Darkseid War storyline, Barry Allen becomes the host for Death, also known as the Black Racer. Through Barry, Black Racer kills Darkseid and Barry fights off Black Racer, escaping from his grasp. Barry runs away, but the Racer gives chase, staying mere inches behind him. When Black Racer catches up to Barry, he explains that he must have a tether. If he doesn't, the entire world will end and everybody will die. He shows this world to Barry, and Barry accepts the power. He has to kill someone though to let the universe continue to live. So then he appears in front of Iris. As he does, the Black Racer bursts out and tries to kill her, but Barry once again frees himself from the manifestation of death, but this time using his own weapon to kill him. Killing Black Racer seemed to be the answer, but instead, Barry Allen had freed Death. And since it no longer had a tether, it wiped everyone out. Yeah, Death isn't as cool and collected as the one from Supernatural. But luckily this was all happening inside of Barry's head, so when he comes to, he accepts the responsibility of Death and becomes in essence just the Grim Reaper, the last thing that anyone sees before they die. And honestly, that's pretty damn powerful if you ask me. And also, kind of my dream job. Halfway through and at number 5, Savitar. As a fan of the Arrowverse, I feel like I need to include one of the most interesting evil speedsters in the show. Savitar, while sharing a name with another evil speedster from the comics, is actually revealed to be a time remnant of Barry Allen in the show. Being more of a future Flash than Savitar, I mean he's kind of both. It's weird. He also didn't come back to kill Barry, he came back to kill Iris. His story is pretty messed up. In essence, making himself and having like a classic chicken and the egg scenario. Which came first, Savitar or the Time Remnant? Neither, they both kind of made each other. In the post-Flashpoint Arrowverse timeline, Savitar comes back from the future after escaping a Speed Force prison to kill Iris West before her and Barry can get married. This causes Barry to create as many Time Remnants as he possibly can because he is willing to kill himself in order to save Iris. Yeah, the Savitar kills them all because, he's a future version of Barry. He knows what's gonna happen. Except he spares one. The one he spares is gonna become Savitar because he gets shunned by the rest of the team for not being the real Barry Allen, even though he is still the real Barry Allen. Whatever. So in an act of fury and rage, the Time Remnant runs back in time, creating a new identity for himself as the first speedster and the god of speed, known as Savitar. But the suit he wears also allows him to travel at basically instantaneous speeds, and it's also existent and non-existent at the same time. And the show version of the Flash has not been able to do that at this point. He's not been able to travel basically instantaneously, even in recent seasons. And he's only visible to other speedsters. Normal people can't see him, at least while he's trapped inside the Speed Force prison. I don't think they really went over that afterwards, after he got out. But hey, whatever. And at 4, Speed Demon. Recently I wrote a list about the Amalgam universe that combined DC and Marvel characters, and the Speed Demon comes from this universe. A combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Barry Allen was a circus daredevil who sold his soul to become the first Speed Demon. The demon component of Etrigan was also formerly Jay Garrick, because Night Spectre stole Jay's soul, which is kind of rude because that's my thing. Anyway, the Night Spectre approached Blaze and asked him to serve in his attempts to collect the souls of pure and the most corrupt, and I mean also again that sounds like a pretty sweet deal, but Blaze Allen refused. So in an attempt to persuade him, I guess in a way persuade him, at his wedding night, Night Spectre stole Iris's soul, and then he asked Blaze to do it, and then he did because he wanted to get his girl back, or at least make sure that she wasn't gonna be killed or something. But I mean yeah, that's not how that works. Speed Demon also speaks only in rhymes, and whenever I do that, people get mad at me, but I don't care. This is a speedster with a flaming skull head that can also breathe fire. So, yeah. Wally West, which is an amalgam of Wally West and Danny Ketch, was also the next Speed Demon who accepted the power in order to help his uncle get Iris back. But I mean, come on. A fire-breathing, speeding ball of fire and lightning? That sounds incredibly badass. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Godspeed. August Hart is the former detective partner of Barry Allen. August was the only witness to Barry's accident that turned him into the Flash. While going after a criminal organization known as Black Hole, August was struck by lightning during a Speed Force storm in Central City. So, after this, August became the ruthless vigilante known as Godspeed, and got his revenge on the one who he suspected to be his brother's killer. He had given up on the justice system since his brother's killer had gone free, and with his newfound power, had the ability to become judge, jury, and executioner. August realized after he had gotten his powers that he also had the ability to steal other speedsters' speed, though for a time could only do it by killing them. He practiced this skill enough to be able to do it non-lethally, but like, you know, he still was killing people. So with his new godlike speed, August was able to move so fast that he could create duplicates of himself at any given time, allowing him to give the illusion that he and Godspeed were two different people, which is pretty damn sick, considering the alternatives are Speed Mirage and Time Remnant, which aren't really the same thing. And I mean, the CW show also did kind of adapt this with all the Godspeed clones during the Godspeed War storyline, which I mean they should have went into more, but oh well. Penultimately, in at number 2, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster that is an evil combination of Batman and the Flash, which already sounds terrifying, but wait till you hear his story. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but Robins kept dying left, right, and center. So understandably, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his methods, which honestly just seems more realistic to me. Aside from him just, you know, quitting fighting crime. This eventually leads him to Barry, who he tries to get speed from. But Barry refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers. So Batman uses various rogues' weapons to fight him and knocks him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic, treadmill-powered Batmobile and drives them both into the Speed Force. And then when entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce end up fusing together into a Batman with super speed, while Barry's mind was trapped inside Bruce's body. And you know, of course Bruce gets to drive. He also then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, and who they try to recruit him into conquering the multiverse. Anyway, eventually he gets exposed to a large dose of positive energy, which allows Barry Allen to take control. Gotta love those positive vibes. And then he helped in the fight against the Dark Knights, but also the positive energy kills him, and Red Death explodes. Finally, in at number 1, White Lantern. While Barry Allen became a White Lantern at the end of the Blackest Night storyline, he became in essence a god. I described this in the most powerful Green Arrows list, but hot damn do these dudes have some sweet powers. They can use any color from the spectrum of light, since white light is just a combination of all the others. I'm sure you've seen the album cover, or at the very least the Eevee version of the album cover, and you know, the White Lanterns also have power over life, including the ability to duplicate their rings and resurrect people. Basically anything you think of, they can do it. It's absolutely insane. The White Lanterns are basically God, but with many different avatars. White energy blasts, force field generation, energy constructs, energy twins, ring duplication, mind alteration, wormhole generation, time travel, invisibility, resurrection, just to name a few. Yeah, it's so overpowered that I'm surprised that DC didn't just explode after that. Like, imagine you could play as like a White Lantern in Injustice, but like an actual White Lantern, not like a recolored Green Lantern. Oh. In at 10, Reverse Flash. Now I know what you're thinking, but isn't Eobard known as the villain Reverse Flash? But he's a villain, he's not Barry. Okay, look, alright, I get it. In the main continuity, yes, but in the dark multiverse Flashpoint story, Eobard actually becomes the Flash, and he kind of became his own form of hero in a way, like a dark, twisted, messed up hero hellbent on eradicating the human race and just subjugating all superheroes to his will, but hey, that's still kind of a hero, right? Technically it counts. And I mean, like, he's still scary and another version of the Flash, so yes, it does. This is a universe where Barry Allen dies while trying to get his powers back with Flashpoint Batman, aka Thomas Wayne. But he dies, and the Reverse Flash kind of takes his place. But once he tries to stop the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman by threatening them and killing Arthur, you know that there's going to be some hell to pay. So he sets out on shaping the world into his own image. This involves preventing Batman from ever becoming Batman and instead creating his own superhero team full of versions of the characters we know and love, but all with Reverse Flash logos somewhere on their suits usually. And I have to say, preventing Batman from being created is probably the smartest thing that Eobard has ever done, or could have done in this situation, because either way, no matter who becomes Batman, Batman is always going to lead some form of resistance. So by eliminating Batman being created, you stopped just a resistance rising against you, so good on you. And at 9, Gorilla Grodd Flash. Grodd Friended Me is the 13th episode of the 6th season of The Flash, and is the 127th episode overall. In this episode, Grodd comes to Barry as a projection of Joe, and tells Barry that he is aware of his progressions made post-crisis. He asks Barry to assist him with getting to the Gorilla City that is now on Earth Prime so he can at least be happy among his own kind, because currently he was locked up at Argus. Barry realizes that they have to try something new and overlook the past, and they need to work together to beat the Salivar that is in Grodd's mind. Barry and Grodd combine their brains briefly, giving Grodd super speed powers. Barry tells Team Flash what's going on, and Frost discovers that on the off chance that they don't end up separating their brains the exact moment that they escape, they're both going to die. While in the Mindscape though, Barry educates Grodd on how to utilize his speed against Salivar, and he succeeds with Barry's help. Barry awakens in reality, successfully disconnected from Grodd's mind. So yeah, a telepathic psychic gorilla with super speed after combining with the fastest man alive, yeah, that's gonna be a no for me, dog. Actually though, it was a pretty sick episode. And at 8, Speed Demon. Speed Demon, first introduced in Speed Demon number 1, is, aside from what your ex-girlfriends might have called you, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Blaze Allen was a circus daredevil who sold his soul to become the first Speed Demon, and yes, there are multiple. The demon component Etrigan was actually formerly Jay Garrick before the Night Spectre stole Jay's soul. The Night Spectre approached Blaze and asked him to serve in his mission to collect the souls of the most pure and the most corrupt, which just sounds like a dream job to me, but whatever. Blaze Allen refused, so in an attempt to persuade him at his wedding, Night Spectre stole his wife's soul. He stole Iris's soul. Yep. Blaze then accepted the bond, hoping to get Iris back or at least ensure her safety, but of course, he pulls back. That's not gonna happen, bro. Speed Demon speaks only in rhymes, but is a speedster with a flaming skull head that can also breathe hellfire. Wally West, an amalgam of Danny Ketch and obviously Wally West, was the next Speed Demon who accepted the power in order to help his uncle get Iris back. It's interesting because, like, I would give up my soul for super speed. Are you kidding me? And the ability to breathe fire? Speaking in rhymes is great. Yeah, that's right. You better not hate. And at 7, Mercury Flash. Mercury Flash is a robotic version of the Flash made by Doc Tornado as a member of his Metal League. The robot uses a mercury-based physiology, whatever that means, that can make it somehow able to channel the Speed Force, and like the actual Speed Force, not even a fake one. I don't understand how this man not only learned about the Speed Force, but was also able to replicate or siphon it off using mercury, but whatever. It's comics, okay? You don't really need an explanation as long as it helps the plot. First being introduced in the Multiversity Guidebook number 1 in March of 2015, this version of the Flash can do everything the normal Flash can do powers wise, but because, you know, he's a robot, can't really do human activities, but he also has the added advantage of being a robot, so he doesn't really fear death. Not only is it in his code to not fear death, but he can also just be repaired. This version of the Flash hails from Earth 44, and I kinda really want to be him. No responsibilities, only running super fast and drinking motor oil. That's the dream. And at 6, Savitar. As a fan of the Arrowverse, I had to include this one, okay? He's one of the most interesting speedsters on the show. Savitar, while sharing a name with another evil speedster from the comics, is actually revealed to be a time remnant of Barry Allen, being more of a future Flash than actual Savitar. He's a combination of the two. His story is pretty messed up, in essence making himself to have a classic chicken and the egg scenario, as Cisco would put it, where he caused himself to be created. In the post-Flashpoint Arrowverse timeline, Savitar comes back from the future to kill Iris West before her and Barry get married. This causes Barry to create as many time remnants as possible in order to stop him, but Savitar kills them all except for one. The one that he spares ends up getting shunned by the rest of Team Flash for not being the real Barry Allen, even though he still technically is the real Barry. It's weird. So in an act of fury, the time remnant runs back in time, creating a new identity for himself as the first speedster and the god of speed called Savitar. And then he comes back. He burns his face at some point, and then he tries to kill what would have been his wife, and he like remembers everything. He's in love with her, but he still tries to kill her. Yeah, I don't get it, but it's still pretty damn scary. Halfway through into number 5, Black Lantern Reverse Flash. The Black Lantern Corps is a group of various dead superheroes and villains alike who were raised by Necron and each given a Black Lantern ring. This ring grants them power over death, and these rings are powered by the Anti-Monitor, as he is present within the Black Lantern power battery. Those raised by the Black Lantern ring are in essence resurrected to where they were before death, but their mind is warped to serve Necron's purpose. Those with the ring have various powers, including a healing factor, aura recognition, cognition, which allows them to see powerful emotions, energy spectrum assimilation, which lets them extract the hearts of individuals that they've slain and then use their last feelings to charge the central battery and their ring by 0.1%, and they, much like zombies, can infect others by biting them. A bite from a Black Lantern will slowly kill the one bitten, and then would turn them into Black Lanterns upon death. Basically zombies with superpowers in addition to being an evil speedster, so definitely not something that you should be trifling with. And at 4, Johnny Quick. Johnny Allen, also known as Johnny Quick, is a criminal speedster from Earth 3. Together with his girlfriend and partner in crime Atomica, he was a member of the crime syndicate. Johnny Allen was a high-profile criminal on the run with his equally criminal girlfriend when he was cornered on the roof of Central City's Star Labs. Allen was struck by a bolt of lightning which shattered the roof, and the duo fell into the lab space below. With Allen landing amid the chemicals, something in this incident granted him super speed, and went on to become a powerful supercriminal alongside his girlfriend, who also had been empowered. While his girlfriend took the name Atomica, he took on the name Johnny Quick. And he ran through the city, answering to no one, until the day the White House burned. Around the time of Darkseid's incursion into Prime Earth, the being that had destroyed Ultraman's Krypton came to Earth, and an alliance of supercriminals formed to find a way to safety. Now my question is Johnny Quick the reason Johnny Quick became a speedster? There's the whole storyline where Barry Allen runs so fast that he disintegrates, but then he also time travels and becomes the bolt of lightning that gives him his powers. So technically, did that also happen to Johnny? Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Godspeed. August Hart is the former detective partner of Barry Allen. August was the only witness to Barry's accident that turned him into the Flash. While going after a criminal organization called the Black Hole, August was also struck by lightning during a Speed Force storm in Central City. So August became the ruthless vigilante known as Godspeed, and got revenge on the one who he suspected to be his brother's killer. He had given up on the justice system since his brother's killer had gone free, and with his newfound power and the ability to become judge, jury, and vibrating executioner, August realized that after he had gotten his powers that he also had the ability to steal other speedsters' speed. Though for a time he could only do it by killing them, he practiced the skill enough to be able to do it non-lethally as well. With his new godlike speed, August was able to move so fast as to create a duplicate of himself at any given time, allowing him to give the illusion that he and Godspeed were different people, which is pretty damn sick, considering the alternatives are Speed Mirage and Time Remnant, which aren't technically the same thing. Time Remnants just create evil versions of yourself, apparently. Penultimately, and at number 2, Black Flash. The actual physical representation of death for all speedsters, they just can't see this guy coming. Okay, well, they can, but you know what I mean. Black Flash is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. Making his first appearance in The Flash Volume 2, number 138 from 1998, he was seen before the deaths of several speedsters, including Barry Allen, Johnny Quick, and Bart Allen. He also tried to return Wally West to the Speed Force, however was unsuccessful, taking Linda Park instead, Wally's girlfriend. Which, after past experiences, Wally, I feel like he probably did you a favor. But since he was unsuccessful the first time, Black Flash returned to try to claim Wally again, freezing time for everyone without a connection to the Speed Force. But thanks to the combined efforts of multiple speedsters, including Max Mercury, Jay Garrick, Jesse Quick, and Wally, Wally was able to race Black Flash to the end of time, causing death to have no meaning. In the CW, Black Flash was Hunter Zolomon after the season 2 finale, and was killed during season 3 when Savitar lured him out of the Speed Force and Killer Frost froze him, resulting in her first kill that actually turned out to be her ex as well. Dare I say, ice cold. But that didn't stop the Speed Force anyway, since later Barry Allen returned in the Flash Rebirth storyline in the comics, becoming the new Black Flash, until Professor Zoom took over the title after his corpse was raised in the Darkest Night storyline. There's a lot of things going on. Finally, in at number 1, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster that is an evil combination of Batman and the Flash, which already sounds terrifying, but wait until you hear his story. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but Robins kept dying left, right, and center, so understandably he got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his let's call them methods, shall we? Which honestly seems realistic to me, aside from just quitting to fight crime, but that can't happen, otherwise they wouldn't have a story, right? And DC wouldn't make any money. This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his speed, so Batman uses the various Rogues Gallery weapons to fight Barry, knocking him out, and then tying him to the front of a cosmic treadmill-powered Batmobile, and drives them both into the Speed Force. I don't even know how that happened, logically, or why that would have worked in their world, but whatever. You do you, Bat-Marty, we gotta get you back to the future. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce end up fusing together into an evil Batman with super speed and a lust for killing, while Barry's mind was trapped in Bruce's body. He then gets a visit from the Batman who laughs, who just makes him even crazier and wants to help him conquer the universe, or the multiverse even. So Yeah, he's number 1. And at 10, Future Flash. The Future Flash is certainly an odd character, not due to anything about them, be it physically or otherwise, but because of his motives. The Future Flash is a version of Barry Allen from the future who blamed himself for the death of Wally West. In an effort to correct his mistakes and try to prevent this tragedy, he starts killing enemies to gain enough speed to travel back in time. He starts by killing Gorilla Grodd with a microbomb he phases into his head. Then he eventually kills enough people to travel back to kill one final enemy, himself. His goal this whole time was to travel back to before Wally dies and kill his old self, preventing any of this from happening. At least he thinks. Which honestly is a pretty awful plan if you ask me. Like, I know that it's like, well, alternate timelines or whatever, but if you went back in time and killed yourself, wouldn't you then not be alive in order to go back and kill yourself, thus making it impossible for you to kill a past version of yourself? I mean, you could kill your future self, but not your past one. It just seems odd to me, honestly. Though Future Flash is evidently stopped, he does give Barry a clue about the murder of his mother, saying only one word: Thawne. And at 9, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster version of Batman from the dark multiverse, and no, not the universal one. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but as various Robins kept dying, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his methods. This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers. So Batman uses the various rogues' weapons to fight Barry, knocking him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic treadmill improved Batmobile and drives them both into the Speed Force. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce end up fusing together into a Batman with super speed, while Barry's mind was trapped in Bruce's body. He then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, who asks him to join Barbados's Dark Knights, whose goal is conquering the multiverse. Eventually, he gets exposed to a large dose of positive energy, which allows Barry Allen to regain control, helping in the fight against the Dark Knights. But the positive energy also kills him, and Red Death explodes into light. Fun. And at 8, Daniel West. First appearing in The Flash Volume 4 number 0 in 2012, Daniel West's mother died while giving birth to him, something that his father never forgave him for. Iris West, as his sister, protected and supported Daniel until he ended up pushing their father down the stairs and crippled him for life. After that incident, due to fear of being shunned by Iris, Daniel fled and became a small-time thug by age 18. When trying to make it to the big times, he was stopped by the Flash and was sent to prison for 5 years. Eventually he got out, but was kidnapped by gorillas and then saved from those gorillas by the Rogues, who then he tried to escape, but got hit with a monorail powered by a Speed Force battery. This is what gave Daniel his speed, although it was dependent on the charge of that battery. So in an effort to go back in time and kill his father to save his relationship with Iris, which is kinda backwards buddy, but you know, you do you, he started killing speedsters to gain enough speed to make the journey. In the end, he was stopped by the Flash, who convinced him to give up his speed. Daniel West is one of the rogues that Future Flash ended up killing in his mission to gain enough speed to, in essence, do the same thing that Daniel wanted to do, except Future Flash was killing himself, not his father. But Daniel officially died in New Suicide Squad Annual number 1 in 2015. And at 7, Earth X. Earth X, or Earth 10, Flash was born and raised in a world where Germany won World War II. And since this is a sensitive subject for YouTube, I'm going to avoid using specific terms, so my apologies in advance. While his real name is unknown, Der Blitz, as he's known in German, is the member of the, oh god, I'm going to butcher this, Gretchkidtilga. Oh wait, hold on, that's wrong, I need to yell it. Gretchkidtilga! God, I hate myself for that. Which is basically an evil regime version of the Justice League, also referred to as the JL Axis. The current members are Brunhild, the Earth 10 Wonder Woman, Leatherwing, Earth 10 Batman, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Flash, Green Lantern, and Overman, the Superman of Earth 10. This version of the Flash also appears in the Freedom Fighters The Ray animated series that takes place in the Arrowverse, but was interestingly missing from the Crisis on Earth X crossover that featured characters from this show. Instead, this Flash was just Eobard Thawne from Earth 1 wearing Harrison Wells' face, which leads some to believe that Thawne killed the Earth X version of Flash in order to prove himself to the regime. And at 6, Savitar. This Savitar from the comics is certainly another interesting character, first appearing in Flash Volume 2 number 108 in 1995. The man whose name is still unknown that became Savitar was a Cold War test pilot. As he reached top speed in a test flight for a supersonic fighter plane, the plane was struck by lightning and went down in hostile territory. Once he learned about his speed though, he became obsessed and craved more, like any villain does. He named himself after the Hindu god of motion and spent years studying, learning new powers that no other speedster had mastered. He can protect himself in what is in essence a speed force field, give speed to objects and even other people, and heal injuries instantaneously instead of just way faster. As Savitar's obsession grew, so did his followers, and he became the leader of basically his own self-worshipping cult. That's the dream. And as he desired more, he went after the only speedster around at the time, Johnny Quick. The fight ended up causing Max Mercury to show up, who led him to the speed field where Savitar bounced off. He did at some point return, and instead wanted to eliminate his competition, including the Flash, Impulse, and especially Max. But he ended up dying in the Flash Volume 2 number 111 in 1996. Halfway through into number 5, Capitalist Couriers. First appearing in the Flash Volume 2 number 6 in 1987, the group, originally known as the Red Trinity, was created by Russian scientist Pyotr Orlov, I totally butchered that, when he and his partner attempted to recreate Flash's super speed abilities after watching a daring rescue. The second group of test subjects was successful and were named the Red Trinity. The group included Anatoly, Bebek, and Cassiopeia, and they became agents for the Soviet military. But here is where it gets weird. When the third Flash came to enlist the help of Dr. Orlov in the issue of saving Jerry McGee's life, the Red Trinity chose to follow Orlov to America. While there, they became infatuated with American culture and chose to stay in the US, opening a business as a team of super speed messengers called Capitalist Courier Service Inc. Cassiopeia has since died because he was running up the side of a building trying to make a delivery when his speed vanished and he fell to his death. This was thanks to Savitar's reappearance. These Russian speedsters literally made Amazon super prime. That's hilarious and I love it. That's probably what I would do with my powers, honestly, now that I've gotten the idea from this. Thank you. And at 4, Silent Running. When your world is described as a paradise, there isn't much that you can think to screw it up. That's because you didn't consider volcanic eruptions blotting out the sun, sending that once paradise into an ice age. When this happened, surviving members of the Holy Light religion went on a pilgrimage to find salvation for their people. The leader of the Holy Light, Stephen Mallory, left his sons behind while he went on his journey. Brian and Tristan were left alone, with Tristan taking his father's place as leader while he was gone, even though Brian was the eldest. However, upon their father's return, Tristan killed him. Then the brothers went out into the world in search of lightning, one of the foundations of their religion. They eventually got struck by lightning, which had an interesting effect. Tristan, the one who killed their father, was aged, while Brian was given super speed and the power to create what they call green life. So Tristan kinda freaked out, locking Brian in the heart of a machine that pushes back the ice to create a livable city, because Tristan believed this was necessary to save everyone, but considered himself a living god of sorts. He demanded people obey his will and use their life force to keep himself young for centuries, all the while trying to be blessed by lightning, which I'm guessing means getting struck by lightning over and over again. Getting close to the end in number 3, Wizard. This version of the Flash actually comes from the Marvel Universe, believe it or not. And while yes, the speedsters are a superhero archetype now, this one is a deliberate reference to the Flash from an unofficial Justice League vs Avengers crossover fight in the Marvel Universe. The Wizard is a member of the Squadron Supreme, which comes from a parallel dimension of the Marvel Universe. Stanley Stewart is his name, and while running late one night, he ran through a strange fog. Over the next few weeks, he gained the ability to run faster than anyone else. The original goal of the Squadron, which Wizard was a founding member of, was to create a utopia, which they would have accomplished. They turned much of the world into a paradise within the first year, but stopped when a former member, known as Nighthawk, convinced them that it was in essence a dictatorship. Shortly after the project ended, multiple members of the team got stranded in the Marvel Universe, but did end up making it home. And ultimately in number 2, No Rules to Follow. In an Elseworld story where metahumans are hated, much like mutants in the Marvel Universe, 10 individuals with superpowers banded together to try and get the world to trust them by doing good deeds. These people, who on other Earths would be known as the Flash, Shark, Fire, Dr. Light, Polaris, Power Girl, Poison Ivy, Tasmanian Devil, Changeling, and Metamorpho. But unfortunately, they didn't accomplish their goal, since their attempts to contain a nuclear meltdown made everything worse. After this disaster, metahumans went into hiding, and a few metas, Flash included, begin raiding military bases that had previously attacked them. But after a battle with the Control Squad, which was a group of high-tech operatives with the Wayne Foundation, created to fight the metahuman menace, caused an even further split, resulting in Ivy, Changeling, and Metamorpho all hating the military even more. But when Superman showed himself after some convincing, Wayne funded a new group, made of the original 10 metas minus those who wanted revenge, and replaced those 3 with Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, and Superman. This new group, which was dedicated to upholding tolerance and justice for humans and metahumans alike, became known as the Justice League. But this version of the Flash also looks like really weird. It looks like if Juggernaut was cosplaying the Flash. Straight up. Finally, in at number 1, the terrific Whatsit. Last time I talked about the Crash, a turtle from Earth C- that has super speed, but now I bring you an even more ridiculous version, the terrific Whatsit. Merton McSnurtle first appeared in Funny Stuff number 1 in 1944 and was a World War II era hero on Earth C-. He has super speed, super strength, and can fly. And the reason he's called Whatsit is because in an effort to conceal his identity, wait for it, he takes off his shell when he puts on his costume, so nobody knows that he's a turtle. That's even funnier than the whole glasses thing for Superman. This version of the Flash even dresses like Jay Garrick with the helmet and everything. I'm not kidding. It's absolutely incredible. I love it so much. His name is McSnurtle. He's McSnurtle the turtle. Hell yeah, baby! In at 10, Black Flash. The embodiment of death for all speedsters, Black Flash is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. Making his first appearance in the Flash Volume 2 number 138 in 1998, he was seen before the deaths of several speedsters including Barry Allen, Johnny Quick, and Bart Allen. He also tried to return Wally West to the Speed Force, however was unsuccessful, taking Linda Park instead, Molly's girlfriend, which I have to admit is a pretty big bummer. Since he was unsuccessful the first time, Black Flash then returned to try to claim Wally again, freezing time for everyone without a connection to the Speed Force. But thanks to the combined efforts of multiple speedsters including Jesse Quick, Jay Garrick, and Max Mercury, Wally was able to race Black Flash to the end of time, causing death to have no meaning, defeating the zombie speedster instantly. I mean, I know he's not a zombie, but he looks like one. But that wouldn't stop the Speed Force, since later Barry Allen returned in the Flash Rebirth storyline, becoming the new Black Flash, until Professor Zoom took the title after his corpse was raised in the Darkest Night storyline. Before we move on to number 9 though, if you could do me a huge favor and hit those like and subscribe buttons, that would be amazing. It really helps us out against the eternal struggle of the algorithm and lets us know what you want to see more of. Thanks. Now, let's continue. In at 9, the Black Racer. However, Black Flash was not the first embodiment of death that speedsters had to deal with. Being introduced in New Gods number 3 in 1971, Sergeant William Walker became a servant to Darkseid after being paralyzed during the Vietnam War. But while sharing the same concept, the thing that makes these two speedster death gods different is their abilities. While yes, both are speedsters, the Black Racer possesses the unique power to merge with a host, corrupting that person and enhancing their abilities. He did this with Bart Allen and used that to kill Darkseid during the Darkseid War storyline when the Anti-Monitor had taken control of the Black Racer. Black Racer also kills Darkseid in Final Crisis in place of Barry Allen and Wally West. This was pre-Flashpoint though. Plus, his costume just looks pretty badass if you ask me. This is the kind of evil speedster that you should cosplay. Damn, that would be cool. In at 8, Johnny Quick. Johnny Quick of Earth 3 is an evil version of the Flash who's a member of the Crime Syndicate, basically the Justice League, but evil. Same people, but different alignment. Jonathan Allen was once a high-profile criminal, but got cornered on the roof of Star Labs. While on the roof, Jonathan got struck by lightning, which also shattered the roof. John and his girlfriend fell through that roof, with John landing in a load of chemicals which ended up granting him his super speed. And his girlfriend, Rhonda, ended up gaining powers similar to that of the Atom. Looking at images of this guy, you can tell that he's nuts. Like, he looks like if the Green Goblin became a speedster. Like if Norman got the Carnage symbiote and then got super speed, this is what that would look like. Absolutely bonkers. However, when fighting against the Injustice League of Earth Prime, Johnny underestimated Captain Cold. See, he had managed to disarm Cold, but the gun was also voice activated, which allowed Snart to remotely freeze Johnny's leg and then kick it, shattering it. Johnny tried to crawl away, but was killed thanks to Alexander Luthor stealing his powers and then getting his neck snapped. That's gonna leave a mark. And in 7, Kingdom Come Flash. Wally West from Earth 22 is weird to me since it feels so backwards, everything does. In the Kingdom Come universe of Earth 22, Wally West received his speed through unknown means, but nonetheless he still became the Flash. And when Superman retired, Wally kept going, but he kept going and never stopped, running from scene to scene, disaster to disaster, never taking a break. Before this, however, he ended up having a daughter, who got her speed genetically and became Kid Flash. However, this is where it gets weird to me. His children were named Iris West and Barry West, and it sets me on edge because like they're supposed to be older than him, and then Wally is supposed to inherit the Flash mantle. It's weird. Not to mention that this time, Barry and Iris are actual biological siblings, which only makes all the memes about the Arrowverse even worse at this point. But considering Wanda and Pietro from the Ultimate Universe, it's nothing new for comics. Gotta love them Game of Thrones-esque love stories, am I right? Okay, well in this universe the kids don't actually end up dating, but you know what I mean. And at 6, Savitar. Yes. As a fan of the Arrowverse, I felt the need to include one of the most interesting evil speedsters on the show. Savitar, while sharing the name with another evil speedster from the comics, actually is revealed to be a time remnant of Barry Allen in the show, being more of a future Flash than Savitar. Honestly, he's a combination of both. His story though is very confusing, in essence making himself a paradox. In the post-Flashpoint Arrowverse timeline, Savitar comes back from the future to kill Iris West before her and Barry get married. This causes Barry to create as many time remnants as possible, which is basically a clone of himself, in order to stop him. But Savitar kills all of them except one. The one he spares then gets shunned by the rest of Team Flash for not being the real Barry Allen, even though he's still technically the real Barry. It's weird. So in an act of fury, the time remnant runs back in time, creating a new identity for himself as the first speedster and the god of speed known as Savitar, and then somehow gets his face badly burned. I feel like I need to return him to Papa John's. When he fails at killing Iris, however, he tries to scatter himself across time to become immortal, but is stopped by Team Flash and is shot in the back by Iris, which lets the paradox catch up. Season 3 was weird, man. It's nothing compared to Season 7, though. Halfway through into number 5, Bizarro Flash. When Bizarro 3 found himself infused with radiation from a blue sun, he got the power to replicate himself as well as create other Bizarro life forms based upon the likeness of people from Earth, which is gonna have a ton of legal repercussions, but whatever. He uses this power to create a cube-shaped Minecraft-like Earth he calls Bizarro World. One of the inhabitants he creates for it is Bizarro Flash. The post-crisis Bizarro Flash is morbidly obese and is super slow, which is just ridiculous. But for some reason, he can also fly at the speed of light, apparently, which also doesn't make any sense, but hey, it's comic books, what are you gonna do? Some versions of this Bizarro can still run fast, but get winded easily, so they don't pose much of a threat. Certainly not against the likes of someone like Kingdom Come Flash, who never stops running. This version of Bizarro Flash also has a line of mustard for a logo instead of a lightning bolt, although I do have an odd craving for hot dogs now. And at 4, Leah Nelson. Leah Nelson from Earth 9 is a very different version of the Flash, to say the least. On her Earth, Leah is the second most recognized person on the planet. She was an instant celebrity since her parents were the first people to visit Jupiter, her mother was a bit of a hero herself, and her father was a Nightwing agent, even if he wasn't very good at it. But Leah is a being of light, and once able to control this power, she took on the moniker of the Flash. Since she is a being of light, Leah is also able to travel at the speed of light, basically making her a speedster without having a connection to the Speed Force, which I admit may frustrate some of you with her being on this list, but I thought it was interesting and is certainly a weird version of the Flash. Leah also has a whole host of powers, including superhuman speed, metamorphosis, where she uses light to create solid holograms and alter her appearance, energy construct creation, allowing her to make solid objects out of light, energy projection, which is just beams of energy, and energy absorption, which in essence makes her immune to any form of light, including lasers. Just think of energy as lightning and then boom, even more flashlight. Getting close to the end into number 3, Hot Pursuit. What is the Flash known for? Running really fast, right? Running so fast that he can actually end up beating instantaneous teleportation. So what's the deal with this Flash? Being first introduced in The Flash Volume 3 number 6, Hot Pursuit is a version of Barry Allen from another universe who came to warn his counterpart about an impending disaster, which ends up being Flashpoint. The difference? This Flash doesn't run. Instead, he has a Speed Force powered motorcycle called the Cosmic Motorcycle. Yeah, his cowl is a motorcycle helmet and his suit is in black and white. This version of Barry Allen doesn't seem to have a physical connection to the Speed Force, only being able to access it through his motorcycle. Unfortunately though, Hot Pursuit dies 6 issues later in The Flash Volume 3 number 12 as a part of the Road to Flashpoint event. The moniker of Hot Pursuit would later be adopted by Patty Spivot after she stole his gear from the Central City Police Department. Penultimately in number 2, Speed Demon. I remember a while ago I mentioned an amalgam universe that combined DC and Marvel characters, and I mentioned the Iron Lantern, a combination of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark. Well, today I present you Speed Demon, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Blaze Allen was a circus daredevil who sold his soul to become the first Speed Demon. The demon component of Etrigan was formerly Jay Garrick before the Night Spectre stole Jay's soul. The Night Spectre approached Blaze and asked him to serve him in his attempts to collect souls of the most pure and the most corrupt. Blaze because Alan refused. So in an attempt to persuade him, at his wedding, Night Spectre stole Iris's soul. Blaze then accepted the bond, hoping to get Iris back, or at least to ensure her safety. Speed Demon speaks only in rhymes, but is a speedster with a flaming skull head that can also breathe hellfire, which is pretty dope. Wally West, which is an amalgam of Wally West and Danny Ketch, was the next Speed Demon, who accepted the power in order to help his uncle get Iris back, because he still didn't get her back after he accepted the power. Finally, coming in at number 1, the Crash. Oh my god. Coming from Earth C-, this Crash is the fastest animal alive, and a member of the Just a Lot of Animals group, which is this world's Justice League. On Earth C, everyone is some form of animal, and it's probably the most ridiculous thing that you could ever read. While his real name is unknown, the Crash is this universe's Flash. And not only that, but he's actually a turtle. The classic tortoise in the hare scenario. Slow and steady wins the race to get super speed and a connection to the Speed Force, apparently. And I'm not even kidding, he fights against characters with names like the Weather Weasel instead of the Weather Wizard. That's hilarious. I love it so much. The Crash was first introduced in Captain Carrot and His Amazing Zoo Crew number 14, which also features superheroes like Wonder Wabbit, that's actually how it's said, Aquaduck, Batmouse, and apparently not a Batman, who is literally a bat for some reason, the Green Lambkin, and not the Green Lantern, and my personal favorite, the Green Sparrow, along with a load of other ridiculous names like The Item.